Live from the Pitch Pad in New York City. Get ready to unleash your inner entrepreneur with Pitch Live with Amy Summers. Whether you're a seasoned entrepreneur or just dipping your toes into the Shark Tank, this is the place to be to discover how to turn your pitch into reality. Fasten your seatbelts, pitch stars, because the spotlight is on you and we are about to make success happen. Get ready for Pitch Live in 3, 2, 1. Welcome to Pitch Live. I'm your host, Amy Summers, founder and president of Pitch Publicity and Inisivox. I'm also a hardworking entrepreneur who's passionate about helping you reach success in any area of your life. And I know this is possible after decades of experience in perfecting the pitch and enhancing communication skills, which is why I'm here today and joined by Gillian Stoney, who is a former and forever pitch star, having interned with us at Pitch Publicity in the fall of 2013 and worked alongside me for just over 2 years, wrapping up with us at the end of 2015, at which point she took a position with the Four Seasons Hotel and Resorts Public Relations and Marketing Department, where she is currently employed today. Hooray! Good job, Julie. Almost 10 years. Can you believe it?
I know. You're telling my age, Amy.
And I'll never forget the phone call I got from your soon-to-be boss when you were in the interview process with him. He was just trying to get a recommendation on you, but was really baffled on why I was highly recommending you and not keeping you at Pitch Publicity. And I remember specifically telling him that I couldn't afford to keep you, that you were too talented and needed to be at a company like the Four Seasons that could pay you what you were worth. So I'm glad that they see that in you and that you're still there.
Yeah, it's been a great run, since leaving Pitch. And I mean, the opportunities that we were able to kind of do together really kind of plummeted me into working with Four Seasons, and a lot of things crossed over. So it's been a great ride so far.
Well, you were definitely one that I think back when I think about MSH, which is make shit happen. You made it happen. And I'm very proud that you're there. And I mean, it really says something about your character and your talent that you've been with them for so long, such a big company. That's really something to be proud of. So, well, speaking of interviews, I actually been conducting a lot of interviews today with potential interns, and it made me think about your first interview. It's one of the, out of all the interviews I've conducted through the years, yours really sticks out to me the most. I remember actually I interviewed you in person because we were at a restaurant near the University of Florida campus where you were in school at the time. And I remember not hiring you the first time around, but I would love to hear this first meeting from your perspective. What was that first interview like with me? What did you learn from it? If you could do anything differently, would you go back in time and change that first interview? What was that like for you?
Well, it's funny. So during that time, I was really trying to start to get into public relations, and, they always try to tell you to try to do internships. And so it was kind of my first time really doing a lot of interviews. I worked with the call center at the time, which, was kind of something that with your agency to call and to pitch and stuff, I thought it would be a great opportunity and a combination there. But, interview is always challenging because you're basically trying to sell yourself. And how do you do that and present it in a way that is unique to that specific company or agency that you're trying to get the job for? So for me, I was very nervous. I had a few interviews before, and it was just really like a waiting game. And a lot of them were over the phone. So being able to do kind of like an in-person one, you're trying to really present and people can actually see your expressions and how you actually are and can kind of connect with them. So it was very nerve-wracking as a first time like interviewer. You haven't really done any job interviews or anything like that yet. So I was a little nervous. But I always think back to trying to sell yourself. And I think with every interview, you get a little bit better because then you kind of see if you are in person, it does help because then you see the person's interaction with you to some of the questions that you're answering, or you see kind of like a little bit of their movement. So body language is another big thing that you kind of see. And that's something that you learn from because a lot of the questions questions when you're in interviews are very similar. What brings you to this company? What have you been doing? How can you help us grow? So a lot of those things do come up over and over again, and being able to see the person's body language kind of helps you in other interviews to kind of respond to that, to those questions. Going back, would I do anything different? I don't know. I just would be a little bit more confident, I guess, in the way that I presented myself. I know with anything, the University of Florida obviously puts out a lot of great candidates. And for you to be looking just for students from the university, you kind of have to really be very confident in what you can do and how you can present yourself, even if it's an internship and not just a job. So I think I would just be a little bit more confident. And I think that even pitching when I actually started working for you has really built up my confidence when it comes to interacting with people and being able to really sell what it is that I'm trying to talk about in any kind of way. So
absolutely.
I think that's the only thing I would
agree.
do.
I agree. And I'm glad you brought up the body language, because I believe that is why I decided not to go with you initially. But do you know that it was because of your interview? It was because of not just the interview, but then going back and deciding to bring you on anyway. And then you turn out to be such a rock star. It's because of that experience that I had. I don't do the first round interviews are not in person and they're not on Zoom. I do phone. So I did 3 first interviews today. They were all on the phone. You don't even go to round 2 if you can't master the phone. So I really believe that had I only talked to you on the phone, I probably would have hired you because of that experience that you did have, that you referred to. And we're going to talk about that a little bit. But at the University of Florida, you had this job. I think it was with the Alumni Association. I'm not sure, but I know that it was calling alumni, which if you ever have to, I don't even know that this job exists at UF anymore because nobody calls anybody anymore. But I think they text me now. But the students that have had these jobs at universities where you have to call alumni and ask for money, I'm telling you, they're one of the hardest jobs. And you would think that they would be the easiest because alumni can be super nasty about giving money.
And you're always getting the calls of someone who just graduated. The hardest thing is trying to get into the job market right after you graduate. And a lot of people are still doing internships or even going back to grad school or something. So you'd always get those callers right when you're starting out early in the evening, is just calling people who have just graduated. And that is the hardest thing.
And they have no money. And they
have no money. Yeah. You're trying to be as relatable to get anything out of them. Just keep the conversation going. So that was always a challenge. I'll even say that I not only do I not do in-person interviews on the first interview, because I don't want to judge body language, because essentially this is a remote job we have at Pitch Publicity. So I don't really need you to be in person right off the bat. That's something that I can train later on. So not only do I not do Zoom or in person, I also take it a step further. I don't even look at their social media. I don't look at anything because I'm so afraid now of prejudging someone, not just hearing their voice. So I go strictly off voice now. Now, if your voice isn't good or you're really hesitant. That's true. Good. That's true. It's true. But everyone on the phone always tries to, they can't see you. So I feel like their confidence is a little bit better. They build it up because, like you said, that first form of seeing you or judging from, your body language, if you're kind of like slunched over, people can kind of get into their comfort zone just talking on the phone. And like you said, that's something that you do for pitch. So it's, it works that way.
And I think you're right too. I think that it's easier to be confident on the phone because when you're on Zoom, then you have to worry about all kinds of other things. You have to worry about somebody running in the background or a dog or cat showing up, or how you're looking. All of those things can be really intimidating. So I like to do the Zoom interview as a secondary interview, just as a check. I do want to make sure that people, they're presentable. They thought enough of, dressing correctly for the interview. They're not in their sweats. Are you interviewing a lot of people in your job capacity now? Do you do a lot of interviews?
I don't do too many interviews in the style of hiring for work, but for me, I do a lot of video work and working with a team. So we do sometimes do interviews with them and trying to coach them through questions. So it's a little bit of a different form, but doing that part of it has really helped me in my personal, just to try to shorten a lot of the communication that I have. Because sometimes you can get very long-winded, and this way teaching them to kind of condense a lot of their answers and responses to questions have also helped me to do the same just in my day-to-day. Like, how can you think about this in another way and make it a little bit shorter and punchier?
I
Because
want to
nobody
go,
has time.
I know exactly, right? I want to go back a little bit to your internship at Pitch. So we'll go down memory lane a little bit. You know, you mentioned that you started pitching with me, and I did throw you right on the phone and you started pitching. What was the difference between pitching and cold calling media versus cold calling alumni? Did you find those two jobs very different, or are they kind of the same in a way?
I say they had some similarities in blurring lines because you are trying to sell someone on something. But I think the differences for between pitch and alumni is that with the alumni, it's kind of harder because, like you said, they are students, they have no money, so it's like harder to kind of sell them on giving something. With pitch, working with the media, they understand what the capacity of the content that we're trying to push out there, and then they're also very open to different topics. So being able to kind of really dive into those topics with them is a little bit easier than the alumni, because all you got to talk about is Gator football half the time. But with this, you have a broader broader topic, and maybe can kind of dive into a few other things and really kind of connect with them because they also want to have a good show themselves. So I think that's where it differences. But being able to actually have a conversation with them is the biggest part that really comes together.
Now, I recall you really enjoying pitching media. Was that your experience, or did you have to kind of grow into it a bit? What do you remember about that?
I think it was just fun to kind of be able to hit a goal at the end of the week. I know we always work with different goals with pitch. So being able to see like the goal line at the end really was like a big motivator for me to be able to get those interviews and lock them in. And then once we started to kind of go up the goalpost a little bit, it got more exciting. So that was the part that I found to be very fun. I looked forward to the Friday of closing that one last call to hit the goal at the end of the week. And so it just made it fun. And I think as soon as we started pitching more outside of like radio and getting into TV, that was really fun because then that was like a whole new audience to kind of talk to.
What's the difference between pitching a radio producer and a TV producer from what you remember?
I think with Yeah, like with TV, it was so much more detailed, obviously, because you're going to come out on TV and do an interview. It's more detailed than with a radio. They just had a topic, or it could have been like a quick little soundbite in between about whatever we were talking about. But with TV, it was really more like that interview style and going through it, and everyone you are putting out there really had to be TV ready and presentable outside of just talking on a phone or not being able to see them in person like how you are on the radio. So
You can't just be
I love
smart.
that.
I tell experts
Yeah.
that all the time. You can't just be smart.
Yeah.
You got to be pretty too. They actually ask. You need to ask me, how do they look? And I'm like, really?
Yeah. Yeah. That's a big part of it as well. So definitely having the confidence on TV and being able to, talk through it, and even touching into topics, and it might not, come up in your initial talk through or walk through or something like that. You just have to be able to kind of think on the spot. Whereas radio, you have a little bit more chance to kind of, not be so, I guess, excited or kind of like present yourself in that kind of way on
To be
radio.
quick with TV. They TV producers don't seem to have that much time at all.
No, no.
Now, do you remember what was your proudest pitching moment during the internship?
When I pitched Good Morning America, I know we didn't get on the show, but it was so exciting to be able to actually pitch to them and talk to them. And now working with Four Seasons, we always pitched, different, events or offerings and stuff like that that they'll do on the show and stuff like that. So being able to say that I did that before even getting into Four Seasons was something really cool. Talking to them is on such a big show and such a big platform. I know some of your clients have been on there before now, but it was really exciting to be able to at least start that off and now see that a few of them are on the show.
Do you remember who you were pitching on Good Morning America when you were here?
I can't remember. I know it was a doctor, and I think it was a gentleman, and it was something to do with cancer at the time because it was in October, but I can't remember his name actually.
Maybe it was Dr. Horner. Was it about breast cancer?
I think it was, yeah, it was breast cancer related, and we were trying to get them on the show, and it just
Doctor,
didn't work out for for timing wise, but it was cool to still be able to pitch them. I know we wanted to try to get them back and get them on the show, but it was nice to see it actually being able to talk to them and go through it and almost make it to the finish line. So I thought that was pretty
well, I'm
exciting.
sure it's so much more fun working at the Four Seasons and calling Good Morning America and being like, "Would you like to come to our resort on an island?" I'm sure
It's a lot easier to sell.
than our alternative treatment for cancer. Would you like to have our doctor on to talk about that?
Yeah, it's definitely an easier sell
You did the
to
hard
pitch
work
for.
first, Jilly, and we've
Yeah.
worked with me and all of our clients that are like super hard to pitch.
Yeah, so it's definitely an easier sell, but it was still fun nonetheless.
So you mentioned a goalpost. So I want to go
Hmm.
back there. I think you were
Hmm.
talking about goals that we had laid out for you, and you
Hmm.
definitely like that gamification of like meeting goals. I can tell that you're very goal oriented. But another goalpost thing that we did was I remember we worked together on a campaign for Florida Players Network. It was a charitable organization that was formed by former University of Florida football players. And we put on a fundraising event for them. We did a blue carpet event because they were daters, not a red carpet.
Hmm.
That would have been a no-no. And you worked with me on that. Do you remember? I had you line up all the media for that event. We had a golf tournament. I think you learned how to drive a golf cart that weekend.
I know, very different getting out there. So this was definitely outside of working from home or being on the phone, and you were really in person trying to set it up. And that experience really helps me now in Four Seasons, because that's what I do. We do FAMs and press trips and lining up media and putting everything together. That event was pretty cool. It was great to kind of do something that was a twofold. It was a golf event and it was the actual charity event, and everyone was there. And, they recognize you now that you're, in person, like, oh, I talked to you on the phone and now I'm here kind of thing. And it was really fun driving around with the media on the golf course. I was, their chauffeur for a few hours and getting them to the different players on the course, which is really cool. And it was fun to kind of just like get from behind the screen and be able to, be in person or even be behind the camera and be like, okay, you got to set up and look good and your shirt's good and everything. And that actually helps me in my day-to-day now, because I'm very meticulous about how people look on camera and making sure that everyone's kind of like set up to go. So, it all comes full circle for sure.
Yeah, I just remember your face when I told you, okay, the media is showing up and the players are on like hole, 7 or hole 6. You got to take them out there. And you looked at me, you were on the golf cart, and you had these media people with their cameras like hanging off the back of the golf cart. And you looked at me, you were like, I've never driven a golf cart. And I was like,
And that was funny.
push that pedal and go. And you probably do it all the time. Now you're probably working on islands on golf carts, right?
Yes, yes. I drive the six-seater up every corner of our golf course whenever everybody wants to get the perfect shot of the sunset or doing anything. So I'm on a golf cart all the time when I'm at work with the camera crew and everything. So again,
I'm
it comes
so
full
glad I was
circle.
able to give you that skill set. Golf cart driving. Well, you're kind of teasing out a little bit about your job at Four Seasons, but I'm sure that everybody is super interested in what that's like. Can you share a little bit about what it's like to do PR and marketing for travel, and what are some of the aspects of it that you enjoy the most? And what are the challenging parts? Because it seems so easy, right? But are there challenges
Oh
too?
my God, there's always a challenge to what I do every day. But so for me, I work with everything media, everything PR, communication. So from the website to social media, which now is, the biggest thing when it comes to video and, content and connecting with people. And then I also do media relations. So things that I did with you with Pitch, of just kind of communicate with the media outside of just traditional, but also influencers and selling them too to come to the resort. And video work. So I work a lot with video and production. So all of the things and contents that you see throughout our social media or on our website, I've had some part of it either writing out the script or actually being there while the production's going on behind the camera to make sure that it looks really great. So, it's a really fun and creative job because you do get to kind of think outside the box, and being with the property for so long, you try to think of new and innovative ways to really sell Nevis and sell people to the destination. The challenge is it's Nevis. A lot of people might not even know where that is. So being able to kind of tell that story of the island, and people have heard of St. Kitts, which is the larger island to our federation, and Nevis is a smaller one. So being able to kind of talk to them and share that story is really fun, and that in that fun is the challenge, to get people there. And once people get there, they never want to leave, and they love it, and they find it to be one of the most peaceful, warm places. It's really kind of become my second home, because I go there so often. Some of the challenges is being remote. Not being able to be there all the time does have a challenge when it comes to getting the team who's working to make sure that the guests are very happy, and making sure that, those people are taken care of. But on the other side, it's, there are things in, media and communications that we also have to get done with our media that go down there, or even trying to put together production of something that's last minute and we're not able to be there on property. So that is sometimes a challenge, but the team is always great to really help out. But I know if you were there, that would be, the extra support that they can have.
So
And
you
then there was
are
always
you are in charge of the island of Nevis and your capacity, right?
yeah, basically it's a small
I
island,
remember you
and
telling me that for the first time, that was your job, that you were in charge of an island. And I thought, oh, poor Gillian. Like, she should have gotten some better job, you know?
yeah,
Can you, for our audience that maybe doesn't know where Nevis is or doesn't know about it, do you mind giving us your little elevator pitch
yes.
that you give to media? What is Nevis?
So Nevis is a small island. It's very charming, right in the eastern side of the Caribbean. It's right at the end. It's between the Caribbean Sea and the Atlantic Ocean. So if you've ever wanted to see where two oceans meet but never cross, you go to St. Kitts and Nevis. When you come down the peninsula, that's exactly what you see, that, wonder of the world. And, we call St. Kitts the city. And when you think of a city, like you're in New York, you think of lights and everyone is busy. So that's the city. But when you want to have some peace and quiet and relax, you come to Nevis, which is just a short 2 mile crossing, from St. Kitts. And you feel like a whole world just like lifts from you. You really do. Even for me working there, I have a busy schedule. I'm up when the sun rises, and I'm, down later than sunset to get all the lighting and get everything. But it does feel peaceful. You feel calm. People there are so warm, so welcoming. The island is an hour around, so you could drive around it in 1 hour. It's that small. Everyone knows everyone. It's only about a little over 12,000 people on the island. I mean, you recognize people by their cars. You could see somebody from behind and they'll know who it is because it's such a small island. So it's a beautiful little paradise. It's one of the first Four Seasons in the Caribbean. Now we have, I think, about three and more to come. So it's really one of those legendary properties within the brand. And I think when everyone comes to Nevis, they definitely have a memory that is inviting and warm and relaxing, not like another Caribbean island where it's all about partying and all that stuff, but it's still a place where you can have fun and hike, bike, swim, everything. You can be very active. But it's a beautiful place. It's a peaceful place, and I'm glad that it's been my first full job, outside of pitch, and I really enjoy it.
Well, sign me up. I'll be an intern and you can like
Come on,
send me out
experience
there.
Nevis.
It sounds like
Come and
the
experience.
countryside of islands. It's the country, right?
Yeah, it's very much the countryside. It's beautiful. It's super peaceful. I mean, if you want to do it all, you can definitely do that. You can definitely stay active. You can definitely, be on the beach and have the nightlife. But it definitely feels like a world different from any other island that I've been to.
When you were working with me, you just made me think of something. But I remember we were doing the campaign for Fabian Cousteau at the time when you were working with me. And I can't remember if I had you work specifically on any of Fabian's stuff, or I probably had you running my business so I could work on his stuff. Do you remember that?
Yes. So I remember I was running the show while you were helping him out.
Well,
I know
I was like in the key.
yeah.
That experience is funny because I literally, you and few other interns that were working for me at the time, I had to like basically say, please take care of all my clients because the Fabian Cousteau thing was just sucking all my time. He was underwater for 31 days. But I remember trying to get journalists there, and the challenge with that, even though it sounded fantastic, like, come down to the Keys and hang out with Fabian while he beats his grandfather Jacques Cousteau's record underwater. But I remember the challenge was, like some reporters, they wanted to go down and visit him, but they had to get certified to scuba dive, and like there were all these complications. So I'm curious to know, with Nevis, and especially after the pandemic, because you were working with them obviously before the pandemic and now after, do you find it harder to get people, journalists, not even people, let's just say journalists, to travel to an island like that to experience it? Is it harder to get them there than it was prior to the pandemic for any reason?
There was a short stint where there was that challenge, like the year right after and the island opened up. So Nevis was one of the last places to kind of open up after the pandemic. We were closed for almost a year and a half, and then it had very restrictions when it came to anyone kind of coming in. So even trying to get anyone to the island was a challenge.
You had quarantine for like a month or something like that.
Yeah, it was like 2-week quarantines. You had to do a COVID test before and after, and it was very like a rigorous challenge. You couldn't leave the property either.
They had COVID on the island. Were they protected because there wasn't that much COVID there?
There wasn't that much. They had a few spikes here and there, but for the most part, it was basically like an island that was in its own little bubble. Right. And because
they were trying to stay in their bubble and not let anyone in.
Yeah. And it
was challenging was that for you though? You were supposed to promote it. And were you not working for 2 years? What was going on?
I was. It was still trying to sell it and try to figure out how to get people there who are okay with staying at the resort, because you couldn't leave. A lot of people didn't spend more than a week. And so being not able to leave the property for 2 weeks or longer in some part, it sometimes was very much a challenge. But we did have a few people come, no journalists, because they couldn't stay as long as that. So it was really trying to use the team to kind of put out videos. And I was, being a director behind the scenes here on, Zoom or Teams, trying to direct videos while they were on property to still kind of push out content and things that people could do once the island really opened up. That was really what we talked about a lot. So there was that challenge to try to get them there. And I think a lot of people were scared because on such a small island, the infrastructure for, being able to go to the doctor or things like that is not as like the US. So there were some questions about what is that like? Do they have, the capacity to kind of help me if something goes wrong? And the island did a really good job of having people from different countries kind of come in and assist. So there was that opportunity to kind of help and make sure that the guests and any visitors and in the residents stay very healthy. So that was really good. But now that travel has really opened back up, it's the floodgates have opened and everybody wants to come now and really relax and enjoy the island. So
how do you prioritize? I mean, because I'm sure between influencers now and journalists, like there's all these different levels of like what would be a good exposure hit for Four Seasons. So if you have a lot of requests, how do you make decisions like that? Do you really look at people's following and audience if they're an influencer, or if they're a journalist? Does it depend on their credibility as an organization?
Yeah, so it definitely depends on the credibility and what the story is that we're really trying to talk about. Now that I've been there for some time now, we've had everyone kind of come when it comes to traditional media. But it's really trying to talk about the story that we are talking about in that time frame. Either it's wellness, or we have new residences, or there's something new that's happening at the property. So it really depends on that. When it comes to media, for me, I really look at what the content is that they produce. So it's not always about the following. It's really about like how they engage with the current followers that they have, if it's even small or big. And then also the content that they produce, because a lot of it for us, since we're not there on property to kind of produce content ourselves, is really to be able to reuse a lot of that stuff afterwards. And if I know that they can go out there and once you're on and I set up everything, they're kind of good to go to capture the content that I need. That's something that I really look for when it comes to picking at least influencers and content creators. For media, it really is about the story that we're trying to tell in that time.
What's been the hardest story that you've tried to tell, and how were you able to accomplish that?
Well, I think it was really trying to convince people to come to the destination after COVID because of those restrictions. It was a really hard sell, but I think the silver lining was it is such a safe destination, even though you are going to go through the challenges of trying to get there. Once you get there, you know that you're going to be in a lot safer place than when something that's more open and free for all, and everyone can kind of come and go as they please. So that was really how we kind of told the story of Nevis, is that this is a safer destination to travel to because we do have a lot of these restrictions and, the challenges to try to get in. So once you're here, you're in a place that you can feel very comfortable and relaxed to be around other people because they've also gone through a lot of those different requirements.
That's so interesting. Before we wrap up, I want to
Mm-hmm.
talk a little bit about mentorship. You are very important to me. I remember you were interning for me during a major transition in my life. I was going through a very contentious divorce, and I was moving from Florida to New York, and I had the Fabian thing going on. And I mean, I was everywhere, and you just were steady Eddie. You and the other interns that were working for me at that time, you kept my business afloat. I made it to New York. You got to see that whole transition. I think at some point during your internship, I was even like working out of my car. It was a major transition. I can't even remember like how transparent I was with you. I mean, I had to be a little bit of transparent because I was paying you and we were I was trying to tell you where I was. But looking back on that now, do you remember that? Did that scare you? Did that help you develop more as a professional for me to be transparent in that way about what was going on in my life? Or was it like too much?
No, I think it was really good. I think we built such a good relationship, and even being able to be on your show now shows the extent of how we really connected. And I was able to kind of see you grow and progress in your own way. And moving to New York is such a big thing. And, going through that transition and being able to see your first apartment and we going on the rooftop and you're seeing the views and you're like, this is a moment. Like that was something so special for me to see how far you've grown. And I think being able to be that transparent with the person that you work for and work under is really important because it shows that, we're all on the same team, regardless of if you're higher than me or you hired me or anything like that or paying me. We are on the same team and we have the same goal. And I think for me, I have that same relationship with my director. It's not the same one that interviewed me when we started, but we have a really great relationship now. We're very open with each other. And I feel like I can always talk to him about anything that's going on and my growth and my development within the brand and just like in general. And I think that's important because as a leader, you don't want to just, delegate. You want to be able to know that the people that you've hired are able to do the job. So when you're in distress and under a lot of pressure and doing all the things outside of work, but also life, that you can really count on them. But if you don't really open up, we won't be able to understand what's going on and really see the depth of what's happening there with you or with anyone that you're working with. So I think for me, I have one person under me and we work pretty closely. So I understand something that's going on with her and, being able to kind of talk through it and making sure that she grows. So that's really helped me to be more transparent and more open about my situation, whatever that may be at the time. And as a leader, you can't just stand over and be tough because, we all know life happens and things happen. And it's good to kind of see your mentor also grow in a way as well. So it's good.
I'm so glad you brought that up because I think the default for most people is to not tell their boss or mentor or whoever they're working with about what's really going on. And I think that times that can be to your detriment if there's not some kind of understanding of what's happening. I think though a lot of people think if they overshare, that could hurt them too. Where do you draw the line? Because I know that you're a private person too. But how do you make the decision? okay, I'm going to share this because I think it's going to be important that they know what's going on in my life right now? And when do you like kind of not share certain information? How do you make that decision?
Well, you always have to think like what's going to be pertinent to the situation that you're dealing with. If it's something that's going to affect your work or, your day to day of doing your normal tasks, then I think being able to communicate about that is really important. So that's kind of where I draw the line. Is it something that's going to affect me in work? Then, I share and I talk about it and we kind of work through that. If it's not, then I kind of keep it more to myself because it is something that I can kind of figure out on my own. So that's kind of where I sit when it comes to drawing the line between that. But if you're comfortable enough, even just talking about your day to day with your mentor, that's good. And that always keeps the communication open and keep it flowing. But yeah, definitely some things are always to keep to yourself and keep personal, just to kind of make sure, like this is my boss or my mentor and, not to go too far. But if that's the relationship and that's your comfortability, then go for it. For me, I think if it doesn't affect my work and my day to day, then I could just keep it to myself and kind of work through it.
You do have boundaries, but
Yeah.
that if it's something that your performance might dip,
Mm-hmm.
they
Yeah.
need to know, hey, I'm moving this week, or
Right.
and not find
Or
out like later, okay, why wasn't she online the whole time?
exactly. If something's going to affect your normal day to day, then you kind of have to be open and honest about that situation.
Well, Gillian, thank you so much for joining us today. I know that you have inspired me, so I know that you will inspire so many others sharing your career journey. If any of our audience wants to connect with you, maybe Gillian's your future mentor. What's the best way to connect with you?
Connect with me on LinkedIn, Gillian Stoney, and also on Instagram, Vlogging Beautiful. I need to get better at vlogging. People always say you travel so much and you're not using it to your potential. I need to be my own influencer, but you can catch me there on Instagram as well and see
At
some of my
Blogging
travels.
Beautiful.
Vlogging Beautiful, and you can connect with me there. But always LinkedIn's always the best place if you need some interview or advice, or you see a posting for Four Seasons, let me know. Happy to kind of put you out there as well. But thank you so much for having me. This was great to kind of catch up.
Yeah. And I encourage everyone who's watching this episode to share it, to get more people exposed to Gillian and all the great work that she's doing at the Four Seasons. And I know we'll continue to do for many other islands in the future. I hope that I get an invite soon. And thank you. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Pitch Live with Amy Summers. And be sure to hit that subscribe button and give us a rating or review. Your feedback helps us plan future episodes. I hope you were inspired today to get out there, pitch, advocate for yourself, make success happen, be in charge of an island like Gillian one day. And as a bonus, you can join us at Inisivox, where you can get motivated, hone your communication skills, and binge as much mentorship as you want whenever you need it. The link's going to be in the show notes, along with all my social media handles and Gillian's. So let's stay connected so we continue to support each other. And until next time, Gillian, MSH.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.